All right, so we're now recording. Today is Monday, June 17th. It's 6:34 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Select Board and Water Commission. First order of business, as always, is to review and make any changes to the agenda.
I have an addition.
Yep.
Application for water service for that Potter, Fletcher and Potter.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll add that to the driveway permit.
Yeah.
Any other additions or deletions to be made to the agenda?
That's all I had.
All right, if there's nothing else, we can move on to the approval of the minutes of, we'll do these in
Two separate.
two separate ones. So I don't know if we can do the third because Suzanne's not here. And it was just the three of us.
Yeah.
So we'll do the meeting minutes from May 20th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 20th as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 20th.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Mark. Is there any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing no other discussion on the minutes, all those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I will abstain because I was not present. And we have approved the minutes 3-0 with one abstention.
And Emily did a good job.
Yeah, as always. So
Not my favorite.
So next up, we've got a number of public works things we want to tick through. So first up is just some updates. The two things I wanted to touch on here, trying to get the municipal grants and aid stuff wrapped. I think for FY22, I think we're good. We have everything we need for FY22. We've got
For 23.
for 22, the first section of Black Falls.
No, that was 23, and the second section was 24. I believe.
Give me 1 second. You're probably right.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, 23 and 24.
Yeah.
My apologies.
24, we're still trying to find.
Yes. So 23 is all set.
Okay.
We've got,
That email I sent, that forwarded to you was.
so that's the pre-construction survey with everything, which is good.
Yeah.
So we have that in the file now. Do you know, did that also cover the second sequence, like the stuff that was done in FY24?
I thought it did. I mean, I think we ended up doing them both the same time.
Okay.
Because I told her at the time that we were gonna do both sections at the same time.
Okay.
So I believe that should have covered 24 too.
Okay, I will go back and look at it then, because the one thing we don't have right now is FY24's pre-construction survey, and then the approval, the notice to proceed, or the approval to proceed, or whatever they call it, the email that comes in that says like,
Yeah,
you have a green light.
because usually I get those at a meeting so that we have, I look back on the meeting minutes and then see.
Yeah, and I didn't see them in the files. I did ask them if they've got anything on file, and so far they haven't found anything. So
Okay.
I can go back and
I'll go
ask.
through again tomorrow.
Yes, just go ahead, see if you have anything related to FY24 grants and aid, because I'll go back and look too, because if the pre-construction stuff we submitted in FY23 had the segments we worked on in 24, we could basically say, hey, like, that was to cover both years, and therefore, like, are we all talking about the same thing? Or
Yeah.
they're not really split. If they don't, I'm not sure what we'll do. I'm not sure whether they could take this stuff retroactively or how we'd handle it.
Yeah.
Are we in a position that we lose that grant funding if we don't find that paperwork?
I don't know, to be honest.
I wouldn't think so.
I mean, like, we can definitely supply other documentation, correspondence, and things like that might help bolster our case for, like, oh, it was a paperwork snafu, and this should have duplicated that.
Yeah, I think we should be able to straighten it out, I would say.
I haven't heard back. I did email her again Friday to clarify something, and I haven't heard back from her yet. So
The one I told you to email, or asked you to email?
the one I've been talking to is
Yeah.
just the one who's the state contact.
Yeah,
for,
that's Yeah.
Is it,
What is her name?
Ashley?
Yeah, Ashley.
Yeah,
And she's actually the one I think came out and did the inspection.
okay. Well, after I hear back from her on what they've got a record of, if she doesn't have anything, I'll ask her about, you know, whether or not the two things were dovetailed because they were looked at together. The grant was for 21,000. So that's what we're looking to get reimbursed for now.
Yeah.
FY23, we have all the material, that was for 31,000.
Yeah.
And so that, we should be able to submit in the portal, like this week. We just need the rest of the pictures from Scott, which I'm not sure if he's gotten to Aaron yet.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then we got reimbursed for Hill West when we did that big culvert, I think, you believe already. I think I asked Erin one day, she said we did.
We got reimbursed for,
The Hill West one that we did
okay,
last spring.
what was that under?
That was under Better Back Roads too, I think, yeah.
Okay,
But I'm pretty sure we got, I asked Erin, she said we did get reimbursed for that one.
okay. So that's just the two things with the grants and aid reimbursements. Those are the
I'll look through my stuff.
only two
again.
outstanding, but yeah, take a look again through your inbox and see if there's
Yeah.
anything else in there. The two things specifically are the pre-construction survey, whatever you call it, and then the notice to proceed. The other one up here was the paving grant. So I can't remember, I know we've talked about this and my memory is failing me, so I apologize, but I know we got an email about it. Did they send us the paperwork to say that we got approved for it yet?
No, they were waiting they haven't sent me anything saying we're approved to do it, so.
Okay, we haven't, I thought Scott said
I guess-
we got an email saying that they had okayed it, but I don't know if he meant,
I don't think so.
okay.
Yeah,
I might have misheard him,
I'll double check, Mike.
okay. Okay, well, that's fine, I just didn't know if we needed to act on something or what the status of that was. So we'll just mark that as pending. Okay, any other updates, just general updates on public works stuff, Mark, that you've got on your radar?
I think they just finished on Hill West, some ditching, and some on West Hillside. And now they're up in the Gibu, doing some ditching up there.
Yep,
And then they'll finish grading and getting the chloride on, as soon as they get that ditching done, which should be probably another 2 or 3 days.
okay, yeah, I think they have one more culvert up in the Gibu to replace too, I think, don't they?
Yeah,
Yep.
that too. And then they're cleaning ditches out
Yep.
through there, so, yeah, they're
Yeah.
up there right now.
And just because it's come up a few times around like the ditching and the culverts, and this is, you know, something that's in the draft planning documents that
Yeah.
we look at, but, you know, one of the things that, in terms of how they're doing that work, because it does seem a little bit like, why are they over here and then over here and then over here and over here? They're trying to combine the ditch work with the culvert replacements because the machine's already there.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get the ditch work on the areas that are problem areas where they've got culverts to replace and hitting them that way. So that's why, for example, they're not going to like the beginning of Reagan Road and doing the entire thing for the ditch work. They're doing it in sections, so not every road is going to be treated all at once, and that's the reason why.
Yeah,
So just so people are aware of that, if somebody asks,
Yeah.
like, why'd you only do that section and then move on?
trying to get the real bad sections.
Yep.
Yeah.
And is that also because we have people that are operating equipment for us this year instead of like leasing a piece of equipment to
Yeah.
do the work ourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have an excavator that we're contracting that's moving around with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've got the two trucks running, the excavator's there.
Yeah.
So just so folks know, if people ask like why was only section X of this road done, it's because they're trying to move and do the culvert replacements at the same time.
Yeah.
And we can talk about budget stuff, but we also don't have enough money to do all of the ditch work
No.
in 1 year.
No.
Okay, any other updates, Mark, on your radar?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, so we've got a driveway permit for Fletcher. This is Kip Potter. This is on Green Mountain Road.
Yeah, it's right on the left.
Yep.
It's pretty much a flat driveway going in, so.
One question that I had, I can't remember this, but we updated these forms at some point, and like if you look at the one for Tim Murphy and the one for Kip, which format?
We
is-
gotta get on the same page here and get to right, let me see.
Which one is the one that people should be using? Because one has
That one there,
the new one.
yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at when they're received,
Yeah, but this one also was just received too,
no.
wasn't it?
No, it was received, he said.
Oh, I thought that was,
I think this is the newest updated one.
Okay.
Because that has the road foreman too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which
so
is,
this is like 6 months old.
okay. I
So
didn't-
this would be the new one.
I was
The newest
looking
one.
at this.
So we gotta make sure we get
Wrong
the
year.
evidence on the website
Okay.
and get the.
I don't know where Kip got this one from, unless it was the old one on the website, which would make sense.
Yeah, it probably was, because I think we updated it last fall
Yeah,
or something.
okay. Cool. So looks like Scott's reviewed this one. Everything is fine. No culvert needed.
Yeah,
Any other comments, Mark, on this one?
no, that was pretty simple.
Okay. Then we'd entertain a motion to approve the application for driveway permit for Fletcher Potter.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Suzanne. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Leanne. Is there any further discussion?
Is that the little parcel, like
that
just
little
before
red
the
barn?
hill on the left side?
The one on the left where that little red barn is.
Yeah, Randy Hacker used to.
Yeah, they used to own that. Yeah. Then they're gonna put a house in there.
Oh, there. It's a nice little
Yeah.
lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Quite
Any
a
other
bit of construction on Green Mountain, and then Tim Murphy's right up the road.
Yeah.
Putting another house up
Yeah,
there. Yeah. So,
Any other discussion on the driveway permit? All right, hearing none, we will vote. All those in favor of approving the Potter driveway permit, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. We've got an application for water service now. Was this something that, I can't remember, do they submit those in writing?
Yeah, no, we have a form.
Oh, you got it right here, okay.
And then I fill it out with the hookup fee and the parts and labor.
Great,
So I've got this, and so the whole hookup's gonna be $4,006.99. And I've told him that, he's gonna bring a check in this week to
Okay.
pay for it. We're actually hooking it up tomorrow, the water for him. So I just need a motion to, this is the permit, and then the back of it's the bill, the parts to hook up, for a complete hookup.
yep,
This
inside
is for
the house.
Kip's property also.
For Kip's property, yeah. Yeah. We're gonna hook into, there's a 3/4 inch line that goes to the other house across the road, and we're just gonna tee into that line instead of having to go way back to the main line. I think there still should be plenty of pressure, and it should work fine. So tomorrow we're gonna hook that up with a curb stop.
do we need like a mini excavator or anything?
No, they're providing the excavator.
Okay, that's why
Yeah.
there's no
That's why there's
installation
no-
excavation,
Yeah,
okay,
there's just labor, so it'll be
Great.
just myself, yeah,
great.
to install it.
Anybody else want to take a look at this?
No, trust
Then
me.
on the back is all the parts.
Yep, the
Yeah.
summary, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, is there a motion to approve the application for water service for Fletcher Potter on Green Mountain Road?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Leanne. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Suzanne. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we can vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great.
I checked with Aaron about the bond payment, I had the right number.
Yep, great,
Yeah.
cool. Well, we'll get those signed and we do everything else at the end, but those
Yeah.
have been approved.
And I'll take a copy.
Do we have to
Yeah.
do Tim's driveway permit too?
Tim's has been approved.
We did that.
We just
Done
need to
that last
sign
time.
it.
Oh, we did, okay.
Yeah, that's just an extra one on the stack. Great. So the next item up here is this kind of exercise in planning. Just so everybody's got a copy if they want to look at it while we do this. So I didn't get any feedback from anybody after circulating the last draft. So if
I
there's
mean,
no,
it looked good to me, I mean,
yeah, so if there's no objection, what I'd like to do is just review a few things here really quickly to get any feedback on what might be missing. This is still kind of a framework document that we're going to be working on and figuring out how to get this into like an annual process. But just to quickly walk through it, there's some sections in the top that are in blue right now that we'd like to work through with the road crew just around some kind of, as a
Yeah.
plan, like what are we doing, why are we doing it, what are the indicators of success, key measurements, those kinds of things. So those will be developed. There's some general information just around highway classification mileage. Then it's sectioned off into 3 kind of buckets around the work, section on grading, section on culvert replacement and ditching, a section on vegetation management.
Yeah.
Each section, the idea is to look at a description of the work, what is the work, what is the process for the work, and what is the schedule for the work. So that kind of each iteration of this annually will have an idea of what's being done when and why. You'll also note that in some of these, there's notes that kind of inform this. The format is still kind of wonky, but they're embedded in here just for now. For example, under culvert replacement and ditching, you'll see a note that the average cost for changing an inch culvert is around $2,800. When you add time and labor, it's around $3,500. These are kind of just placeholders to help inform planning when we get to budgets time, so we can have kind of a cost table to refer back to. Scott did come up with a ditch cost calculation, and based on what he's looking at, running 2 trucks plus the excavator, the cost of ditching is running north of $10,000 per mile if you do both sides of the road. There is a note there about future considerations for purchasing a rubber tired excavator, so we can do this work with our own equipment and not contract out. All of the current planning activity in here, I think, is still what they've been doing and will be doing. There is a note here about pausing at the end of this month and looking at budget status, which we'll do anyway because we're coming into the next budget cycle.
Yeah.
There is a section on grants. The hope here is to get kind of a summary of what we've done going backwards and then looking forwards.
The F-25, we gotta sit down and try to, with Bethany, and try to find a location to do the FY25.
Yep. Hidden grants in here. There's also the AOP Black Falls culvert that we're still waiting on. That's the aquatic organism passage 1. So the idea is to put, a whole section on grants, again, looking backwards so we can kind of know, like, what have we been working on in the past, so that people can see that and see, what we've been looking at and looking forward. There is a section here, I haven't figured out how to hyperlink these yet, but we do have maps that inform this, the culvert inventory, hydrological connected road segments, so those would get attached to this. And then there's kind of just a general discussion around long-range planning and budget considerations. So in here, still looking at getting the measurements and clarifications that we're looking for certain things like where class 4 roads start and end. Talked about this in the past. Used to be the state would come out and do it for us. Now we have to actually hire somebody. Future equipment considerations there, thinking about budget season, training, financial planning. There's some new information in the blue section here. I did have a chance to sit down with Scott to kind of look at Route 58 as kind of a case study. It is interesting. Right now, Route 58, to grade, rake, and chloride it using the state's hourly cost structure. So these are the rates the state has set for like what the state reimburses and pays for this kind of work, because it's a state highway. Right now, one round of that costs about $6,000, and we do that 2 to 3 times a year. In December alone, from December through the spring, tracking, time, materials, everything, an additional $30,000 got put into that road. That does not include winter maintenance. This is like mud season triage. Plowing, sanding labor annually runs about $18,000 on that road.
What's on top of the 30,000?
On top of the $30,000, on top of the grading. So if you add these all up at once, 30, 50, 55, 56, round number, say $55,000 annually into Hazen's Notch Road. State right now is giving us $30,000 annually. So this is just kind of one road specifically because it's a state highway that we manage, but
A lot of our money's going into that one road.
yeah, so there's some considerations here around just trying to do more detailed cost analysis of what it is that we're doing and where versus budgeting. And then specifically with this road, now that we have these numbers in hand, I would like to go to V-Trans and kind of say, hey, here's what this road is costing us. Here's what you're giving us. What do we need to do to change this? And I don't know if that's V-Trans unilaterally doing something or going to the legislature and having them redo the cost tables for this or what. But we need to make it clear that, if they're paying us to manage a state highway and it's costing us,
Almost an additional $30,000.
yeah,
Well, kind of, the difference is, my road's a class 2 too, but it's paved.
yeah,
58's not paved, so it's a lot more work for us
yeah,
than a paved road.
Right.
yeah.
So that's the difference.
Not to mention the wear and tear on the vehicles
That's
and
the
the graders
difference.
and
I
everything.
mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Right, that doesn't take into
I mean-
consideration
Like how much it works on
any
equipment.
damage that's
yeah,
being caused to the equipment.
And the amount of traffic on that road.
is increasing. So for any number of reasons, I think we need to go back to
Yeah.
the state and basically
Yeah.
say, look, you guys need to pony up more money to help us manage this road,
Yeah,
or you can take it back and do it yourself.
yeah.
How does a conversation like that proceed? Like,
I mean, I think the first step is to sit down with the new Jim Coda, I forget what his name is,
Stephen
Stephen,
Stanley.
and basically say, look, here's the numbers we're looking at. What's your take on this? What can we do about it? And then see what he says.
You want me to see if I can set up a video with him?
Yeah, if you want.
Try to
And then from there, we
have
can
him come
see.
right out. Have him come right out here, and we can.
Yeah.
Do him and,
And so we can see where that goes. I mean, I don't want to do this in like a confrontational way. Like I want to still work with the state, but I do
No,
think
no,
that
I
we've
think-
got the numbers now in hand to basically kind of say, look, if this is what you guys are going to be asking us to do, then we need to make sure that we're not out $20,000 to $30,000 a year just on that alone. And we have other roads that
Yeah.
need just as much, if not more, attention.
yeah.
And there's some notes around just policy questions that we've been wrestling with, the driveway culverts issue, a note about communications, seeing how we can develop road crew updates, things to get public feedback efficiently and quickly. And then there is a note here still around the forum around SAP trucks
Yeah.
as a placeholder for that.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do
well, and I think that's part of the cost on 58 too.
yeah, it's on every road, but it's
Yeah.
another factor that we need to kind of consider is that's increased traffic there. So all of it comes together.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is, if people are cool with it, is take this, make it abundantly clear all over it that it is a draft. It is a work in progress, but put it out for folks in town to look at and get back with feedback around what's in here, what's missing.
Is
Yeah.
this true that we're the only state that maintains culverts for once
Yes.
they've been installed? That's ridiculous.
We are the only town that maintains driveway culverts once they're installed.
Yeah.
I guess it's a historical practice that we've always done.
But it's just like an honor system practice? Like it's not actually policy?
Well, that's the thing is, I don't.
Well, see, they installed the first one, and then we've always.
Yeah, so we would give them a permit that says, you can do this, here's your driveway permit, this is the culvert that has to go in, you install it, and then we've always said, we will take care of maintenance. I haven't been able to find a written policy on that anywhere.
I don't think
I
there
think
is.
it's just historical practice that we've always done it.
Yeah.
That being said, we haven't always done it. Like,
Right.
we said we're gonna do it, but we haven't because we have a lot
Yeah.
of other things to do.
Yeah.
So it's a question for the town, like, is this something that we still want to have as a policy or not, given just capacity, what we do and the fact that we're the only town in the state that apparently does this.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I have just kind of a question,
Yeah.
a broad question. Maybe this isn't the right venue for asking it, but so, like, I just noticed my mom's name on here with the culvert being cleaned and recently replaced.
Yeah.
Which was cool, but that culvert is an example of a culvert that just daylights into her yard, like it just goes into her yard.
Yeah.
And she's made accommodations and built like drainage, underground drainage to redirect that water. But is there some sort of like rule around like how frequently there needs to be a culvert or something that would be a circumstance where 'cause she's got two on her property that just drain right into her one goes into the field and one goes right into her backyard.
Your yard. I mean, I assume there's Orange Book standards for how many cross drains you have to have given
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
slope. I don't know
It
them.
just depends on how much water's coming up the hills and
Yeah.
the mountains. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean,
No.
I can't say for certain. I would assume.
Yeah.
Do you know how long the culvert's been there? Has it like
Well, it's been there for.
It's been there.
since the house was there? Yeah.
They bought it in '78. I'd have to ask her if
Yeah.
it was there then.
It
But
must
Because I know that like now when you install culverts, I think that those kinds of things would be looked at,
Yeah.
consideration given
Yeah.
to like, let's do it 30 feet that way, guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So this
and
might-
obviously you just replaced it, so I wouldn't like really press the topic right now. But if there came a point where it needed to be replaced again, or if there was a venue or a means for
Yeah.
like being like, hey, can we kick it
Yeah.
back this way?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I just didn't know if there was a rule around distance, like required distance or whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah, I assume there's something in the Orange Book around standards for slope distance
Yeah.
between cross drains, but I don't know what it would be.
Okay.
So if people are cool with it, I'll get this posted to the website with
Mm-hmm.
the big flashing disclaimer, like this is a very draft, but ready for feedback for
Yeah,
folks to
there was
comment.
some feedback.
Okay. Great. And as folks read this or look over it and keep thinking about it, let me know, and we'll continue to amass notes on it. So that was
I do want to make it clear that, okay, we've got all these projects, but say we get a big rainstorm, some of this stuff might not get done because you get prioritized. You know, you wash out a road somewhere.
Yeah.
There goes the budget. You know, I'm just.
and that's yeah.
Weather
that's-
dictates. I mean, takes
100%, and that's
Yeah.
why, like, in
I
some
mean,
of this work,
this-
what I've tried to lay out here is like the description of the work, the planning, and the process. And some of that's where like we would put notes around, you know, like why are we skipping ditching here to there? Well, because the culvert, you know, like I do want to try to
Yeah.
incorporate some of that into here. So
But sometimes if you get a big major rain event,
Yep.
then things change.
Exactly.
But I mean, this is a good draft, you know, a good starting point. Yeah.
yep,
Put a disclaimer at
Yeah.
the top.
yeah, no, but I mean,
First sentence.
I mean-
yeah,
Yeah, like under that scheduling section, like schedule is contingent on like
Major storm. You know.
regular
Maintenance
Weather.
requirements.
regular weather and
acts of
I mean, that can change.
I
Things.
mean, yeah.
That can change things.
Yeah,
real quick.
well, I mean,
Yeah,
like
it
the
does.
Halloween
It
storm
does.
we had definitely
Yeah.
changed all the stuff we were working on. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
So we'll get this out for folks to reflect on and get feedback. So that was it for the future strategic planning, unless people have other notes on it. Last item under here was two things related to the water system. One is that we did get the sanitary survey letter back,
Yeah.
which I think is something that we get regularly with
We
any
do
kind
it. They
of-
do it every 3 years.
every 3 years. Okay,
Yeah.
I was thinking every 2, and then I was
There was
looking at some of
nothing
the
really
dates.
major. It's just a lot of minor stuff.
Yeah.
I'll get that report sent in. And take
So-
that taken care of.
Yeah, so some of the stuff that's in here.
It's all, most of it's due by August 1st.
Yeah, is that something that
Yeah.
we can get?
Yeah, I can get
Okay.
it all done. I mean, some of it's just some bolts. It's all pretty minor stuff, you know, they found.
Yep, some of it's just bolts on lids or expired
that-
reagents
That
or,
sampling tap, we just have to put, I mean, the system's been in 2007, they finally were like, okay, now you need this, but
okay,
we'll put it on.
yeah. Well, that's because, yeah, just to like you
But
said.
I don't see any reason, and then when I do things, I'll take pictures and then I'll send them to you and send them to him,
Okay,
what we've gotten done, so,
great. Yeah, just want to make sure we can make the August 1st deadline so
Yeah,
that
we
we're
should-
not,
we
you know,
should be able
pushing
to.
it, so.
yeah,
Okay, great,
yeah, now the bus isn't there, so,
yeah.
yeah.
And then the other water system item here was just looking forward, you know, it's still a couple years out before this thing is active, but wastewater system is gonna have to be managed. And what I'm looking for is permission from the board to send out RFIs or request for information to companies that do this work,
Yeah.
looking for essentially companies that could take on a combined water wastewater management role. At this point, it wouldn't be necessarily looking for proposals for anybody. It's more just, hey, here's what we're building, here's what we're doing. Tell me about your company and what you have.
Yeah.
So we can get a list of contractors that we can start to talk to.
Well, my thoughts are, I probably plan on running it for another year, the water system, and then we'll have to find something else.
Okay.
Because I'm not gonna have time when they start doing construction
Yep.
to babysit the water, you know, because it's gonna be, it's gonna be a lot of work. And then whoever's gonna take over the septic should be there as they're building it, so they can be part of it.
Yeah,
So-
and with the water, so yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of bring this up
I know we
now.
budgeted for another budget cycle of me running the system, and
Yep,
then the only thing I would ask is I could keep my name on the system, so I can keep my license, but that's the only thing.
okay.
Um,
Well, we can
but my
figure out
plan was
the,
not to keep, I don't plan on getting a wastewater license.
yeah, I didn't think so. So that's why I wanted to
Be open there,
start to talk about this now so that we
Yeah,
could have it in
no.
place so that
Well, you can start budgeting too.
budgeting and planning and, because one of my biggest concerns, like
You're
the
probably only looking at SOS, there isn't too many companies that do that.
SOS, Champlain
Remember-
Associates is another one.
Yeah.
that we've talked to in the past. So there's a few out there that
Oh, yeah.
that
there's-
potentially, but
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember when the Franklin County Development
Tim
folks
Smith?
were in here
Tim
and they were,
Smith.
was that?
Yeah, that was-
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he was talking about how difficult it was to find somebody
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why.
in that capacity. So I think that it's really important that we start looking
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
and that we
No, that's why
get
I'm-
some.
Yeah.
that's why I'm letting you know this,
Yeah, no, it's great. And that's, I was gonna say, this is one of the things that like, the 3 a.m. wake ups, like, oh shit moments is like, like, we're gonna build this thing and then be like, there's no one to run it, right? So to your point, like, I think we need to start looking now so that we have at least
But I
a
think
year
it'd be better
runway to
combine
lock
water
somebody
and
in.
wastewater,
Yeah.
and both combined.
Yep. So if the board's cool, we don't need a vote on this necessarily, but does anybody have any objections to me drafting an RFI and getting it out to companies to respond to?
No?
No.
Okay, then we will
good.
start doing that. So that's it for Public
And if
Works.
they have any questions, you can just put my,
Yeah, yep.
about the system.
So that's it for Public Works, unless anybody has anything else.
So last meeting, you approved that for the Reagan Road project, you approved the Vermont Electric.
Yes,
Yeah.
we signed the occupancy permit and Liz should have gotten it back to them, so
Yeah, okay.
they should be good to go.
And they send a check with, or sending a check with it for Vermont Electric.
Was there a check that's supposed to go with it?
Yeah, there was a fee for Vermont Electric, for that Reagan Road project.
Liz,
I'm-
may very well have done that. It might be in the warrants tonight. I
I'll
don't
see if it's in the
know,
warrant,
but
yeah.
I will ask Liz.
Yeah, I know it was attached to the permit, I think it's like 13,000 or something.
Okay, if it was attached to it, my guess is that Aaron processed it and Liz flagged it, but we can look and see if it's in
I
there.
just wanna make sure, yeah, then
Yeah.
the process started.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. If there's nothing else under Public Works, we'll go to visitors.
Me again, okay, so I just have a few questions and some came up while we were, talking. So, when's the spring, not the spring cleanup because it's already past spring, like the ditches gonna be done on the roads? Is that all gonna happen at different times, because you can't really do any mowing until the trees and stuff are taken out of the ditches?
Yeah, I think they're gonna, they started working on some and they're gonna
Is
try to
that
get that up.
something that the guys do, they do the mowing? Or
Yeah,
do they-
yeah, we're doing mowing, so,
Okay.
yeah, so we'll have to, yeah.
Okay, and,
Yeah. We haven't started mowing yet, we're waiting to get a roll cage on one of the tractors we just bought, so hopefully we'll start mowing very soon. I think it's almost all
because you're
completed.
gonna hit a lot of rocks and trees if you don't clean the ditches out first.
Yeah, Yeah.
So, so up on our road again, is David gonna be trained soon? Have you guys set up any training?
And
Like, I know
anything
we
specific
talked about,
or
like,
For grading.
grading.
for the grading? Yeah,
I've gotta look into it again and get something set up, yeah.
the plan is to get training going, but we don't have a date yet.
Yeah, well, I'm just, concerned because he does grade a lot. I think he probably grades more than he needs to, but I think he has to because of the way it's being graded. Like, if I asked you to just drive up, so we had a nice ditch with stones in it at the beginning of Hill West. I can't remember if it was before or after your driveway,
Yeah,
but it's all full of trees and dirt
full
now.
of sediment, yeah.
It's all full of dirt. I mean, big sods, and now there's big mounds in the ditches, so the water doesn't even have a place to go. So when it does rain hard, which it usually does, every time he grades, it rains hard. And then all that grading he's done is rivulets down the road, and in some spots up our road, it's just you gotta drive in the center of the road because it's so bad on both sides.
So is it like
So,
a lack of crowning that you're seeing?
some of it is crowning
Or-
and some of it's still in the ditch. You need to move that sod to the opposite side of the road. So that it's not in the ditch. It should be on the other side so that the ditch is clean, so that the crown and the water can go in the ditch.
Yeah. Because one thing I did talk to Scott about last week, just because you brought it up, it's an interesting question, is so those stone line ditches over time do fill with sediment, which is the point, right? It slows it down, traps it. But I was asking, how do you clean a stone line ditch? Like, how do you, because with a non-stone line ditch, you go in with an excavator, you scrape it, toss it, you're good to go. But with there's stone on the bottom, like,
Yeah.
While getting those trees out early so they're not taking over the ditch, like in the late fall before it snows, or in the spring
Yeah, I
before
mean,
you
keep
get
it-
any
yeah.
leaves. But now they're like trees in there now, cause they've taken over, and that Japanese knotweed is
Yeah.
growing in
Yeah.
the road and up the road,
yeah.
Yeah,
and that's taken over.
yeah.
So like,
Well, then what
in
do you do with
spots it's
that?
hard, like literally tonight going up, I had to almost slow down and stop to pull over into the graded rivulet part because somebody was coming down the hard pack part in the middle, so I couldn't go up. So, just something to think about.
Can you
That's-
actually move the stuff that has knotweed in it? Cause I know that it's
No.
invasive. Like,
No, I don't
what's
think you
the,
I mean, I don't think there's any state regs that I'm aware of that prohibit you from moving it. And yeah, I mean, it's bad. Like, you shouldn't be, but at the same time, like, I don't know what the alternative is to managing that.
That Japanese stuff?
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
like
When
the,
that truck at
the-
the, remember the truck went down and almost went across the road? I actually passed that truck, it was the guy in Enosburg that has the mulch and stuff. He came downhill west
oh,
and
when
lost
he
his
dumped the
brake,
log truck.
and
Yeah.
like I passed him, like he could not stop, he was trying to pump.
Yeah.
I go, oh my God, he's going too
His
fast.
lead, his Hank
And
son.
then I heard him fall, so I literally turn around, cause I go, God, I hope he doesn't cross the road. But when he smashed that whole area, Japanese, it took a long time for it to grow back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a good year where we didn't have it, now it's growing so bad at the end of the road, like my neighbors went, we
Yeah.
whacked the state section just so we could see to get out.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
other side is just as bad.
Yeah,
Like you literally have to keep creeping to see, to get out there, but that's, I think, a state thing,
Yeah.
on the end of the road. We
Yeah.
have it going up the road though.
yeah.
and I think there's rules and regs about what you're allowed to do with it because it's so invasive. Because do you recall that they were doing work down at
Oh.
River Rock and like cutting it down, but then like burning it in
I think that was just
place?
I think that was just the property owners and the program doing that out of
I know Chaz,
conscientiousness.
You don't
I don't-
have to.
I don't think
No,
there's any
I don't think you have
regulations
to.
around
Because the challenge is that even the smallest part of the rhizome of that
Yeah.
plant will, and yeah.
We
it's-
have it on Creamery Bridge now, a little tiny crop.
Hmm.
I've never had it. I'm like, oh, great.
Black plastic.
We're gonna
Cut
have
it,
forever.
cut it and put down black plastic, and that should stop. If it's small
I don't
enough,
think Chad Tyler wants me to put black plastic on his.
tell them that you're combating invasives.
I mean, I feel Dave's doing a pretty good job grading. I mean, if you go on the West Hill side, I mean, I came down through there with a bus today. It's really in good shape. And I don't think Hill West, they've done the final grade on it yet either. They haven't. They were doing the ditching, so
I mean, I
think they were
feel
gonna do
like
the final
he grades
grade.
a lot, like.
What do you mean
like,
grades a
not
lot?
Maybe like once a month, but sometimes I mean, is that too much? I mean, if it's done right, you shouldn't have to keep grading.
well, and what I'm saying is we haven't done the final grade with the raking and the chloride. So once that's done, then you don't have to do it. Then
On our road.
you don't have, no, not yet. We
It's
did,
not
we
really dusty.
we put some up by, in a couple of spots because it was real dusty, but we haven't done the final grade because we're doing the ditching, so we didn't want to do the final grade before we get the ditching done. So I think the final grade will be done right after the ditching.
Yeah, and then there's like the culvert issue, like I know there's some driveways up on the left-hand side past Charlie's that don't have culverts. There's a few of them, or if they do, they're so blocked that the water doesn't go through, so like when.
Be above Charlie Carpenter's?
No, about my place.
Charlie, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
on that side of the road, there's like, so the water comes down, and if there's no culvert, you know, sometimes it goes over the road. I know there's a camp up there or somewhere that the water literally comes out over the road in
oh,
the
yeah,
winter, because there's no place for it to go, cause it ditched, and then there's a driveway, and it just stops. So, I mean, I don't know if it happened during the flood where the culverts weren't replaced, or maybe there's culverts, but they're so packed with dirt you can't notice them.
yeah. I'll have to
Could-
check, yeah,
Could be.
But that's on Hill West.
Yeah.
There's a few of those.
yeah,
I feel like the water should be able to run all the way down the hill in the
yeah.
thing, instead of stopping and doing whatever it does. I guess that's mostly it, except for, so like, as a road commissioner, do you go around every so often and check what the guys are doing to see if they're actually doing what they're,
I mean, I go around Hill West and West Hill every day with a bus.
with the bus, yeah?
I mean, and check roads, and then, yeah, I go check what they're doing. And then Scott checks in with me almost every day of what, you know, what they're doing for the day and stuff, so, you know, I try to stay on top of it, yeah. I mean, I pretty much talk to Scott every day, I mean, what they're doing, so.
And why don't we lease equipment and have the guys run it instead of hiring somebody to do it? Is there a reason, is it cheaper to hire somebody?
I think it's more efficient.
Yeah, I think it's more efficient at this point, once we get our own equipment, you know, our own excavator, and, but, just leasing it, sometimes you lease it for a week and it rains half the week and it's sitting there, you know, with this, if it rains for a couple of days, we aren't paying for a piece of equipment sitting there. You know, if you lease it, you have to lease it for a month or lease it for, you know, a couple of weeks. And then if it rains, you know, for the whole week, then you're just sitting on it and not getting any work done. And now with somebody running that, it gives two guys for the truck, you know, it gives the guys more, you know, with the trucks and stuff to move, get stuff, yeah. So I think that was one of the big things with leasing was the like last summer we leased the excavator, but it sat for quite a while because it rained so much, you know, and so I think that's one of the reasons, yeah.
Well, and in talking to the guys about
like-
that lease
like-
last year, they were saying that the weather was terrible.
Yeah.
But also when you get somebody in that operates a piece of equipment every single day and it's just like second nature to them as
Yeah.
opposed to like, oh, you've got to spend a couple days, like they know how to run it, but it takes a couple
Yeah.
days to like develop that muscle memory and all those habits. And so I think,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
I think efficiency wise,
yeah,
I do know the excavator
Yeah.
thing that Scott's brought up multiple times is just having a tracked versus rubber tired one, because with the tracked one, you have to put it on like a low boy
Yeah.
to get it
To
to
move
point A to
it.
point B, whereas a rubber tired one, they could drive it to all the places, so that
Yeah.
would be more efficient. So
yeah,
I think it's a case of trying to figure out just these
Yeah.
questions you're asking, like what makes sense to lease versus rent versus own
Yeah,
versus,
well,
Yeah.
that's why I was just
So
curious.
that's what we're
what
trying to,
we're
like-
hiring.
yeah.
yeah,
with a rubber tired excavator, I mean, it seems to me like that would also be super useful during mud season.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they'd be able to get it places that they can't. I mean, you're not going to get a low boy in with.
well, a lot of
An
places,
excavator
a lot of
on
places where
it.
we go in with a grader, you could just go in with that and scrape, you wouldn't have to move so much material out. You know,
And
you
then-
could just scrape it back and then be more efficient. And, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's it, my question.
Well, once I post this up on the site, please,
When are you posting it?
if I can get Liz to do it tomorrow, maybe. But yeah, it'll go up, and once it goes up, it'll send out a notice if you're on the email listserv for like updates. Anytime something gets updated, every day I think an email goes out that says like, oh, the minutes from this are up or this is posted. So there'll be one that goes out that says like roads planning document, whatever. But it should be
All the
up.
minutes are supposed to be done within 5 days of the meeting, but they're not always posted, they're not posted like right off within 5 days.
They should be, because we usually get them to Liz within
Because
24 hours.
I've looked a couple of times and they're not posted until like right before the meeting. Like I called one time, I said, well, when's the meeting? Is it like this week or next week? And I go, because it's not posted. And
Is it because of her website posting? schedule?
Shouldn't be, because we usually get the minutes. I mean,
I usually send them to her the next morning.
Yep.
There was like
there have been a couple
2
times.
meetings ago or 3 meetings ago, I sent them and she never received them.
okay, maybe.
And so that was prior to that meeting. She did email me and say, it was maybe 3 or 4 days prior to the meet. She must have been posting the agenda for the next meeting and realized that
Oh, we didn't. have
somewhere
minutes.
lost in translation, she didn't get them. So that was
Yeah, but
that was probably on me that they didn't get there and I didn't follow up that I didn't see them posted.
yeah, but by Friday they should be posted from the Monday. So if that happens again, let me know and we can follow up with Liz. But it sounds like
Or email me
It
because
could have been that. Just one.
email me because it's probably on me if for some because I send them
I
to
was
her.
just looking because I wasn't sure, because sometimes there's like 3 or 4 extra Mondays and
Yeah.
you always make the first,
first and
And
third.
third.
Yep.
so I have to like look at this.
Yeah. What is? Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, that brings us into old business. Just some updates on these 2 projects. So on the wastewater side, the gentleman who is doing the easement valuation process has started, and he should have that to us no later than August 10th. And so just as a reminder, what this gentleman is doing, he assesses the value to right-of-ways. So for example, if the co-op wants to come in and put a power line through your property, he would go to the co-op and say, you know, what you're doing here, this right-of-way has a value of X, and that landowner is entitled to this compensation for it. What we've looked to do through this process is to work with this guy to establish essentially either a straight like per square foot value for the easements we're looking at, or some formula we can use to establish the value of the easements. Because when we go out to all the landowners, rather than play some game where it's like, oh, will you give us for free or this or that? Oh, and by the way, after a week or 2, you can get paid for this, because we're just going to go out from the get-go and say, we'd love if you gave it to us for free, but if not, you're entitled to this amount of compensation. Here's the formula we used. That valuation process is coming. It should be starting this next month and wrap up early August. So we'll have that coming. In the next 1 or 2 meetings, we're going to tee up a discussion around the ordinance that'll be governing the wastewater system. The 2 things that we specifically need to talk about are governance of the system, and then the fee structure setup. I will get stuff to the board to review prior to those meetings so that, you know, it's not like coming in cold. But that's the next step with the ordinance there. So keep an eye on that in the next couple meetings. We already talked about getting the RFI out to potential contract managers for the system. We have hit one snag with DEC. So the engineering service agreement that we've got with the engineers, the way this all works is that we enter into a contract with the engineer for any project like this with the state. There's a contract that outlines, you know, the scope of work, the fee structure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then it gets amended periodically as the project moves forward or changes. We are now looking at our 10th engineering service agreement amendment, which is normal. And the one hiccup we've got is that one of the people in the line of command at DEC for some reason got a bee on his bonnet around the way that a fee curve is being applied to a number of projects in the state. And a fee curve is essentially a formula the state uses as a guidance document to say, for any given project of this typical scope, here is what we would expect to see on engineering fees for XYZ. And it's essentially the state kind of looking out for municipalities to be like, hey, they're not price gouging you, and we have an eye on this, and like what you're doing works. The challenge is that the fee curve for a wastewater project that the state uses at DEC is designed for wastewater projects in places like Burlington or Rutland or bigger communities that build things that are nothing like what we're building. This is a non-standard project. And so the fee structures in the ESAs do not jive with their fee curve. And the woman at DEC who we've been working with the entire time, who's been awesome, Lynette, has basically gone around and around and around with him, trying to get him to understand like non-standard projects are not going to adhere to a standard fee curve. He is so far not budged. All this is to say I have a call set up with him on Wednesday to essentially say, what is your rationale for this? And it's a guidance document, not a law or a rule. So what is the process for getting the variance here and moving this forward? I'm hoping we don't have to go really high up the chain of command here to get the decision we need. But essentially, we have a little bit of a roadblock here with the engineering service agreement, amendment number 10. We can't submit it and get it approved until we figure this out. And so we are in a situation where within the next couple weeks, engineering work might hit a pause and a stop, which isn't great because we're on a timeline here that needs to work. So we can't let this linger that long, but that's where things are at with DEC now.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
Do you-
that's awful.
Do you know when they're supposed to do those borings? They were supposed to do like 90 borings around the town.
I thought they started them.
They did two, and then the scheduling wasn't right or something. And
Oh,
the guy that was doing the borings like, oh, I just thought I had these two to do. And they told him he had 90 to do, and they were supposed to reschedule.
I don't know. I saw a couple of scheduling
haven't heard.
emails go by, but I haven't followed that too closely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was some
I'll-
miscommunication there.
I'll ask them Wednesday.
Yeah. 'Cause most of the stakes they had in the ground are gone now.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that was from the get-go. That was one of those.
or they had a dig saved, and those are gone.
Yeah. I will ask to see what the process is there and where they're at.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
So that's the update on the wastewater side of things. On the streetscape side of things, I had a meeting Thursday with the engineering team there and the folks from V-Trans around the conceptual plans. I haven't had any feedback from anybody in town outside of the discussion with Darren at the last meeting. V-Trans has completed their review of them. There are no red flags or any issues that they've brought up.
Okay.
There's some minor things they want us to chase down. So I'm going around to talk to different landowners around minor things, like for example, at 91 Main Street at the J Cloud. That now has two entrances from 118 and an entrance from River Street. And so one of their questions is like, is there a way to close off one of those entrances to make it more like straightforward as to where traffic flows? Those are the kinds of things they want to know. What they basically said is this project has the potential to cement things that would never be permitted in the first place, but exist because they've always existed. And so they want to try to button up as many of those as they can. I don't think any of it's going to be like a hard, like, if you don't close that one entrance, this project is dead kind of thing, but it's more like chasing them down to tell them that we've talked about it and figure things out. But other than that, there was no big red flags from V-Trans, so that's great.
Good.
I had a question about that.
Yeah.
I was wondering, and this is probably not like particularly significant, but remember for a while there was conversation around doing bump outs to try to slow traffic, and that was sort of vetoed because of the whole acquiring the road thing. But what I saw, I was wondering what they've been doing in Enosburg this year is where the crosswalks are.
Yeah.
They do that. They put these enormous flower
Planters.
plots, and
Yeah.
and I was like, could we do something like that in the summertime?
Yeah,
And
I think
was like,
so.
a bump out, like a
Yeah.
seasonal bump out.
Yeah, there are a couple things like that we will want to talk about as we get to
Might take
this
a couple parts.
next stage of things is something like that. Plus, we also need to talk about like can't think of the acronym, RF rapid flashing beacons. That's what they call them. And whether that's something that we want installed or not. V-Trans is kind of a mind of like not going right that route and only doing it if like these things happen, but some communities like Enosburg have gone and put them in, and so there's some little things like that that we'll need to talk about when we get past the conceptual designs into the final designs.
Yeah.
So there'll be a chance to bring that up.
Okay.
Yeah. But I did see that in Eastbrook too.
Yeah. It's like, oh.
Did you ever find out if they're gonna be doing the curb stops and stuff for the water when they do the streetscape, or?
How do you mean doing the curb stops?
Well, replacing some of them, because some of them are in the sidewalk now, so when they do the sidewalks, they're gonna have to replace like the curb boxes and
yeah,
stuff like that.
the engineering team hasn't dug into that, but that is something that we'll want to coordinate.
Cause some are right
With
off the
the
sidewalk, and it's
project.
there, and if you make the sidewalk bigger, you're gonna have to put new curb stops in, you know, risers and all that stuff.
I'll flag that for John.
I just don't wanna see a big bill for the water department.
No. And replacing any of this stuff, it makes sense to do it right then.
Yeah,
So I think
that's
it'll be
what I
a
mean.
case of just trying to coordinate timing in terms of, like, they wouldn't be doing it, but we could get a subcontractor to come
Yeah.
in and be following along and doing this as they're doing it. So
Yeah.
making sure the sequencing works. But I will flag that for John.
Yeah.
So that's it for the plans. The one point of not awesome news is the grant that Bethany and I were looking at and working on to potentially get another few $1,000,000 to help fund construction of this. Once we dug into the application, we realized that the minimum floor for a project cost to apply to that is $15 million.
Whoa.
And so we were kind of like, well, yeah. So we're running
San
into some.
Francisco.
Well, I mean, like we're running into like a lot of the federal programs. The way they're targeted and designed right now are like whenever the feds come out with a new program, like you can think backwards to past administrations. Like when Obama was around, there was the Tiger program. You guys remember seeing like Tiger with the stripes and stuff.
Nope.
So every time they do this, they try to figure out like what are we targeting here? What do we really want to do? And they put these grant applications out that are like, do this, but in the fine print, it's like, but we're really focusing on these areas that meet this criteria. So for example, we talked about at one point, there was Safe Streets for All money that we could look at for the intersection at 118 and 242. Well, one of the metrics is like, how many folks have died? And we were like, well, no one's died yet. And they were like, well, if no one's died, you're probably not gonna get funding. You won't rank out. And so it's like, okay. So it's kind of like,
Yeah, I remember that.
it's a chicken and egg thing in terms
Yeah, I
of like,
remember that.
but
Nobody
we,
stops there.
Yeah.
No, it's awful.
No.
so there are other things we're gonna be pursuing. There's
Amazing, there is.
a bike ped grant that we're gonna look at. So that continues, but the grant application we'd mentioned in past meetings, we're not gonna pursue that federal one.
So if you don't have all the money, we have to just scale back the project, or?
So
I mean-
if we end up not having the money, we would just pause until we can secure it, basically.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I mean, what happens is that we're working through the VTrans money through, my acronym game is off tonight. The current VTrans money we've got for engineering, partially for construction, that's what we're working through now. We do have the NBRC money. There's bike ped money through the state that we're gonna go after once we clear right of way. And then we can also go back, I think, for another slot of the TAP
Oh,
tap money.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So we've got options in front of us. It's just a case of,
Okay.
but we did discuss last week, like where the hold points are in terms of work moving forward, so that we can know when to pause in order to get those ducks in a row before we move forward.
Yeah.
And I did talk with VTrans too about their timelines for things. Because when you use tap money for things, there's a process by which they want to see step by step by step by step. But should something happen where it hits pause, we're okay saying, hey, this is paused now until we can secure these funds.
Oh, okay.
And they wouldn't come back and say, well, okay, this is now over because you haven't done step 6. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
okay.
So that's where things are at there. So it's all about chasing more money. So that's the updates under that. If there's nothing else under old business, new business, 2 items here tonight other than the normal ones. The first one is just municipal contract renewal options. So I wanted to have a conversation with the board around contract renewals. what we usually do, standard practice, is every July 1st, or the beginning of every year, now it's July 1st, we give every employee a brand new contract. It's kind of a pain because, like, we have to go through and make the contracts and get them and then go to the people and go over them and have them signed and countersigned and then go back to people. And it creates a long process that usually puts us sometime until like late July or August before contracts are finally done. I have talked to Aaron, and if we want to, what we can move to is essentially a framework whereby they don't get annual contracts. What happens is that when we do compensation package changes, those would just be reflected in the minutes of the meeting, and therefore it would take effect because of that at the date of effect. So that would handle compensation. The rest of the details around performance, vacation time, sick days, all these kinds of things would be in the employee handbook, which Aaron's working on. The only key would be at hiring, there'd be a written job description that everybody would be given. But if we move away from the annual contracts, we can basically just get into a system where the wage increases happen with the fiscal year based on the minutes. If there are amendments to anything, it would just be an amendment to the employee handbook, which is a one-stop deal as opposed to amending 8 different contracts. So if folks are cool with that, we can move away from issuing full annual contracts and move to this employee handbook option.
Yeah.
That's not okay to
Sounds a lot
folks?
I think so.
Yeah, it's
How-
not more efficient.
Yeah.
How
That
does it,
does sound far more efficient. How do we alter or change a job description after it's been issued upon hire?
Yeah, so for a job description, I think that's where we have to sit down with the employee and say, hey, you were a road technician, now you're being elevated to road foreman. Here is your new job description. Do you have any questions? Let's review this. Let's both sign off on this that we understand, and that goes into the file.
Would that be spelled out in the personnel handbook or the?
I don't know if the employee handbook would have all job descriptions in there.
That would cover that. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
If we had it in there.
we could.
I mean,
I think one of the things is that, like, you know,
Like
for
create
example, when
new
we
job.
hired Dave, like, we kind of carved out a little
Yeah,
bit of
we
a
did.
different position.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I guess there's a couple ways we could handle it, but whoops,
Yeah, that computer just died.
is that computer not? Oh, okay. Whatever. Will, your recording is still working, right? All right. I wonder if that wasn't plugged in all the way and the battery died. I don't know. Either way, it's fine. Yeah, so that's how we would handle the job descriptions, would be in writing at the beginning of the job, and then anytime there was a change, we would have a sit-down review, sign
Yeah.
off on it. So there'd be a signed record of, Power Strip wasn't on?
Nope.
Oh. Oh, there you go.
what about, so would the
we
employee,
still do like an annual review of each employee?
Yeah, we would
Okay.
still do a sit-down annual review, check-in.
Yeah, that's what-
But it would all be based on the employee handbook stuff, you know, so
Okay.
we wouldn't have multiple iterations of contracts running around.
Yeah.
okay.
So then everyone would be an at-will employee as
Yes.
opposed to a contracted employee, which does, I mean, like HR wise, legally make our lives as the town
Easier.
I guess I think within that employee handbook, there has to be a policy spelling out how job description changes are issued, and if it's like, if I want you to take on cleaning the bathrooms and you don't want to do, you know what I mean? So like, what's the negotiation? What is the sort of
Yep, it's a good question.
order of operations as far as how that's going to play out?
Yeah, I would assume that any modification to a job description would be an action where the supervisor and the employee would sit down and basically say, like, this was your job description. This is the job description we're looking to move you to. Do you have any questions or concerns? There's a discussion, and then
should you not agree,
Should you not agree, then you can go find a new
choose
job.
to find a new job.
Yeah. Or it could be something where the employee says, well, I get what you're saying here, but that's not quite how that works. Actually, we do it this way. And it leads to an amended job description. It doesn't have to be like a parting of
Right,
ways.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I just think that needs to be very
Yeah, I will-
crystal clear
I will flag that for.
as far as how that plays out,
Yep.
and where that comes from.
Yeah. I will get with Erin on that as she's reviewing the handbook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's no objections to that. Then I'll work with Erin on moving that forward, and then July, which is next month, is the beginning of the fiscal year, and we will institute this process starting in July. Other item under new business here, the sheriff emailed me last week with a proposal.
Yeah.
Did I forward
read it,
that?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you did see it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has any immediate reactions to it. One of my thoughts was just for kicks to go back and ask him if you scaled back your proposal to be 6 hours on a weekend to do monitoring up on 58 of ATV activity, what would that look like? Because that does seem like it is something that we are continuing to get issues, complaints around, and it is something that is pretty straightforward. 58 is not open to ATV traffic.
Well, nor is the pavement, correct?
The V-Trans never came to this town with an ask about opening part of 58 or 118, and my understanding is that for V-Trans to give them permission to make that part of their trail corridor, they need to come to the town and ask us. They never did, so
No.
to my knowledge, it's not.
You said V-Trans, did you mean VASA?
No, V-Trans. So if
Oh.
VASA goes to V-Trans and says, hey, we have a trail here and a trail here, we want to connect them, but it means going 400 feet on a state highway, they ask V-Trans. V-Trans looks at it and says, well, I don't think we have a problem with it, but then they come to the town and say, do you have a problem with this? And I'm not saying one way or another, like whether 58 should or shouldn't be opened or what. I'm just saying that right now, given the way that the ordinance is, like that is not open to ATV traffic, and we're still getting a number of complaints that this is going on, and the county sheriff is, as it says in his proposal, a liaison with VASA to help coordinate this stuff. So that was my only takeaway from that, was like maybe going back and saying, hey, like probably don't want to hire you for 40 hours a week.
No.
But like, what about this? I don't
Maybe
know.
I'll get all the complaints from the opposite direction.
What's
Maybe
that?
I'll get complaints
In
from
the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we all know what the history of this is.
Yeah.
So we don't need to dig into like
Yeah.
that. But I don't know. What, did anyone else have takeaways or thoughts about how to respond to that or feelings?
I mean, it's obviously kind of a contentious,
Yeah.
Well, the very
topic.
last little
Yeah.
bit of what he said. It's like basically, if you want us to come, if you have an emergency. I mean, he didn't say it in so many
Yeah.
words, but that's
Yeah.
what he meant.
Like read
Yeah.
between the lines.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
give us some money and hours. Then, well, we might not come to your town.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a little bit not too professional there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some other things going on with the county sheriff's office that are potentially problematic anyway, that
Yeah.
whether they play into this or not, I don't know.
I
But
don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we know how the town feels.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess, going back to him and saying, hey, what would something like this look like? 6 hours every other weekend. I don't know how it was framed. We'd have to get a budget number and then have to look at that again,
Yeah.
because we have done the F-25 budget. It does not include police services.
No.
So
Right.
we'd have to figure out if it was something we move forward with, how does it get paid for?
Right.
Yeah.
We do have the ability within the contingent select board, we used to call it budget, to move things, but
Yeah.
we got to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it doesn't hurt to ask, but with caution, maybe,
Yeah.
or trepidation.
Yeah.
Well, I think at a minimum, it would give us the information to be able to share if people ask, like, what would this look like, or why does this happen or not happen? We could
Yeah.
at least say, like, this is what the budget implication would be and why or why not we pursued it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if that works for folks, I can get that back to him with that question and we can follow up. Other than that, there's no liquor or tobacco license. We do have a overweight truck permit from A&D Excavating. That's the proposal. I don't know if that looks okay to you, Mark.
Yeah.
Oh, I found it.
Yeah. And this stack of paper.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the overweight truck permit for A&D excavating blue collar septic.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Leanne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we can vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Great, motion carries. That brings us through our agenda. So if there are no other items, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks. We have a motion from Mark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Suzanne. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Great, motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned at 7:44. Thank you, everybody.
So I can get back to wrapping my mails.
Thanks, Roberta.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Roberta.